The sporting news continues our NBA offseason coverage ahead of the FIBA Basketball World Cup, which gets going on August 25th. Gil McGregor here with Kyle Irving, and all eyes are on Team USA. The last time there was a World Cup, they finished in 7th. This year, taking a little bit of a different approach to the roster with some young up-and-comers in the NBA. I'll run through the roster real quick if you don't mind me doing it. Paolo Banchero, Mikal Bridges, Jalen Brunson, Anthony Edwards, Tyrese Halliburton, Josh Hart, Brandon Ingram, Jaren Jackson Jr., Cam Johnson, Walker Kessler, Bobby Portis, who is the elder statesman on the team, and Austin Reeves. Kyle, when you hear this list of 12 names who will be led by newly minted head coach Steve Kerr, what do you think?
I'm really excited to see Anthony Edwards kind of take that, leadership role as the number one scoring option on Team USA this year. I really like the way that this roster is crafted compared to the 2019 FIBA World Cup, where that roster felt more of like a random assemblation of just talented players in the NBA. This year's roster feels much more like an actual team, a unit, guys that will fill specific roles. You have playmakers like Jalen Brunson and Tyrese Halliburton. You have scorers like Anthony Edwards and Brandon Ingram. You have guys that can protect the rim like Jaren Jackson Jr. and Walker Kessler. The talent goes on and on. Defenders like Mikal Bridges. I'm really excited about the roster that Team USA has put forth. I know at first when, the roster started to be reported, people were kind of, shaming some of the players that were getting named. But I think that once you saw the full 12-man roster and the full unit that is going to be representing the United States at the FIBA World Cup, you can't be anything but excited for the United States odds to bounce back from that seventh place finish in 2019.
I think you said it best. This is a cohesive unit. I think, it's kind of a clear hierarchy as far as like there are guys who are going to be role players, so to speak. There are guys who might have spurts in which they step up, and there are guys who are going to be the guy. Now, we talked about it over at the Sporting News, so I'll put you on the spot. Kind of, but not really. I know you mentioned Anthony Edwards. Is he the guy when the game's on the line, when Team USA needs a bucket? Do you want it in his hands, or is there anybody else who might be the guy that they could maybe look towards?
I do think that Anthony Edwards will be the first option in those situations, but there are other guys that I think that the United States would be very comfortable taking that shot. Brandon Ingram is someone that can create a shot and get to any spot on the floor. Jalen Brunson is the type of guy who really just kind of, the moment it never seems too big for him. He always feels ready to produce in those moments. We've seen someone like Tyrese Halliburton knock down game winners in the NBA before. So I do think that, there are a number of guys that the United States would be very comfortable having the ball in their hands with the game on the line. But I do think that, when head coach Steve Kerr is going to draw up a play, the first option is going to be Anthony Edwards.
Do you think this young group is feeling a lot of pressure, or do you think they can play freely?
I do think there is some pressure just because, the United States had one of their worst finishes ever at a FIBA or Olympic event the last time that they, showed out at the FIBA World Cup. So I do think that there is some pressure for them to live up to expectations, especially coming off a gold medal at the Olympics in 2021. But at the same time, they are the favorites going into this tournament. I do think they have the most talent on their roster compared to any other country competing in the FIBA World Cup. And I do expect them to finish with a gold medal at the end of this.
I'm glad you mentioned the talent on other countries' rosters. With in FIBA competition with NBA players on your roster comes pressure. So when you look around the tournament, which rosters that have multiple NBA players outside of Team USA are you looking towards maybe making a splash, feeling some pressure, or really teams to watch out of the World Cup?
I think right off the bat, you got to look at Canada. Canada is a country that they have had the talent. They have the second most players in the NBA outside of the United States. But it just seems like whether it was injuries or NBA contract situations, they never got their full roster healthy and available for a FIBA event or the Olympics. And it seems like we are finally going to see a backcourt of Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and Jamal Murray. Now, Jamal Murray might not be available, depending on how he's feeling after a long postseason run, going all the way to the NBA Finals and helping the Nuggets win a championship. But regardless, you have to be excited if you're a Canadian and getting ready to watch Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, who is knocking on the door as a top 10 player in the NBA, coming off of the best season of his career. I think he's going to have a monster outing at the FIBA World Cup.
That's a good point. I think another country to throw in there is Australia, a country similar to Canada. They're kind of entering a golden era of basketball. I guess Australia is kind of in it right now. Canada is going into it, but you talk about the blend of young guys and older guys with the Australian team, with the Josh Giddey, Dyson Daniels, Matthew Dellavedova, Joe Ingles on the veteran side, Patty Mills on the veteran side of things. That blend of youth and experience, I think, will make them a very interesting team to watch. We just saw them medal at the Olympics back in 2021 in Tokyo. So it'll be interesting to see if they can build on that and continue to build their basketball program, because Australia is going to continue to produce plenty of talent. Now, to widen the lens a little bit and I guess focus more on the individual side of things, there's going to be a lot of really talented players. They're not necessarily on their own, but will be carrying a heavier load for their respective country. Of those players, who are you expecting to maybe lead the tournament in scoring?
I think that if Luka Doncic ends up suiting up for Slovenia, then it's going to be very tough to pick anybody else to lead the tournament in scoring. We've seen him, perform in a big way on the FIBA stage before, but there's a chance that he might not suit up. So I'm actually going to go with a player that I already talked about, and that's Shai Gilgeous-Alexander.
Okay.
I mean, we saw him, he was a walking bucket this year. It seemed like he was sleepwalking to 30 points, scoring in the paint at will. The jump shot looked really, really sharp, and he's going to be the number one option and go-to guy for Canada. They're going to need him to put up big numbers, and I think that he's going to follow through with that, performing for the first time on the international stage for his country. I'm expecting big things from SGA.
That Shai Gilgeous-Alexander pick, not necessarily one that I expected, but I think that's a really good value pick if it's not Luka Doncic. And obviously there are a couple of other players. Nikola Jokic has already said he's not going to be there. Giannis Antetokounmpo status up in the air. Domantas Sabonis also won't be there for Lithuania, but they will have Jonas Valanciunas, who might not get enough buckets on the inside, but he's a guy to keep an eye on because he is definitely built for the FIBA game with his physicality. Any more bold predictions for this tournament before we wrap things up and look forward to what's beyond?
It seems like we're talking about the same countries over and over again here, but I don't know if I would call this a bold prediction, but I really think that one of the breakout players of this tournament is going to be Australia's Josh Giddey. He's someone who, the last time that he had the opportunity to suit up for Australia, he was just coming out of his NBL Next Stars season. He had just been selected with the 6th overall pick in the 2021 NBA draft. He was really kind of focused on getting his feet firmly planted on the ground for his rookie season, and they elected to pass on him. He didn't make the roster, but this time around, I really think that he's going to learn from Patty Mills and take on that leadership role in Australia. I think that he's going to have to do a little bit more scoring than we're used to seeing at the NBA level, and I think that's going to be great for his development. But we also know what type of player he is as a floor general, a leader, and a playmaker, and I think that's going to shine on the FIBA stage as well. So look for Josh Giddey to be the breakout player of the FIBA World Cup.
There you go, a little passing of the torch from Patty Mills to Josh Giddey. I think there's no better person to take the torch from, and I'm sure fans of the Boomers are excited. Stick with the sporting news for coverage leading up to the World Cup and throughout the World Cup, which begins on August 25th and runs through September 10th. And games will be played in the Philippines, Indonesia, and Japan. For Kyle Irving, my name is Gil McGregor. Thanks for tuning in, and we will catch you next time.